Thank you all for being here. My name is Reese. I'm a friend of the Pesa family, and they've asked me to speak on their behalf. On Monday, January 6th, our beloved son, brother, and friend, Francis Pesa, lost a hard-fought battle for his life following a collision with a drunk driver on January 1st, just 2 hours from arriving home from the Philippines. Francis suffered massive injuries, bleeding internally from failing organs and broken bones, and struggled for 5 days in the hospital to overcome those injuries. Francis lived his life with vigor and passion, and fought for his life with the same courage and heroism we came to expect from him. Those who knew Francis were fortunate to love a man devoted to the care of his brothers, honored to shoulder responsibility from his parents, and committed to the welfare of his friends. The family, before this happened, we never did know or fully understand the depth of affection that people had for Francis until those long days in the hospital, where we were first surprised and then overwhelmingly humbled as nearly 200 people, friends and families of Francis, flooded the doors of Foothills Hospital. In the crowded hallways, in the quiet rooms, and in any empty spaces they could find, his loved ones took solace in one another's company, sharing fond memories of him and offering prayers of comfort. It is difficult to articulate the profound impact that this crash and Francis's death has had on all of his friends and family, and all those who feel deep sorrow at such a senseless tragedy. It is even more challenging to comprehend the choice that the drunk driver made and the decision the people around him made in allowing him to drive. The knowledge that Francis was killed because a drunk driver refused to spend $20, $30, $40 for a taxi will forever pain us. We fervently pray that his death and suffering will not be in vain, and hope that there will be justice in the future for Francis. Our family is grateful for the generous outpouring of support we've received from Calgarians and those who have heard the news across the country and in the Philippines. It will be these thoughts and words that continue to sustain us as we lay our beloved Francis to rest. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the person that Francis was, what he liked to do, some of his better qualities?
I think that's the thing is right after it first happened, right after you read those headlines in the paper, victim killed, I think it's unfair to leave it at that. And I'm glad you asked because he was so much more than a headline. He was a 20-year-old. Like I said, he was committed to the care of his brothers. He took care of his younger brothers, driving them everywhere they needed to be, staying home whenever he needed to. He's 20 years old, but always sacrificed his own social life to do whatever his parents, his family required of him. And in dealing with, the preparations for his funeral, choosing little mementos, the families talked about the fact that he loved to cook for his brothers, he loved to sew, he loved to learn. And his friends have come forward too. This is something that his family didn't know, but as a 20-year-old, he would be out late and they just always assumed he was partying too hard or whatever. And later, what they found out is that he was staying late to ensure that every single one of his friends got home safely. He was that guy who did not drink, who did not partake because he wanted to make sure that he drove his friends home. Any other questions?
What's your personal relationship with Francis and with the family? Just describe your relationship.
Sure. So Grace and I are former colleagues. I used to work at the Salvation Army with her. I worked in public relations, and Grace is a social worker. And when everything came down, they asked me to speak on behalf of their family just because it is so difficult and they had been fielding so many calls.
What is it like for you just to be giving the support, and how have you been giving support? How have you been coping with this?
You know, I think because I'm a step removed, and I'm dealing with the officialness of the situation. It is emotional, certainly. I'm very sad. And I knew Francis. I saw him just before the family went to the Philippines. So there is that element. But I think more than anything, you know, in the days since the accident and certainly since his death, I've been nothing but angry and frustrated that somebody's poor decision led to the death of such a wonderful young man.
As difficult as all of this has been, what can you say about just sort of the outpouring, not only from Francis's friends, but you know, just I think the whole city was pretty captivated by this story, by what happened and just come home.
I think what happens in a situation like this is it begins as a personal tragedy. You know, it's very hard for the family. They struggle with that. But as people hear about it, it becomes something that's very big and very large, and certainly something that pulls at everyone's heartstrings. You know, there have been messages on Facebook and Twitter. The other day I did a search for Francis Pesa, and there was a flurry of tweets from people who did and didn't know him. And I think the thing is that even if you didn't, as a person, as somebody who feels and knows, you know, understands the potential of a 20-year-old man, you're compelled to feel that heartbreak at his loss for no reason.
Can you just tell us about his family? Who's who and like how many brothers he had?
Sure. So this is Grace, Francis's mother. His father, Ramil, in the back there. Hervin is his oldest brother. His youngest brother, Florian, or Rob, and Hugo, his 11-year-old brother. And this is Christina, his girlfriend. Christina was in the vehicle with him at the time of the collision.
So is he the oldest or the second oldest?
Francis was the second oldest.
And can you talk about what he was doing in the Philippines on his trip there?
Yeah, so that's just another complex layer of the tragedy that this family is going through. I'm not sure if all of you are aware, but during Typhoon Haiyan, Ramil, so Francis's father, lost 41 members of his family. They hunkered down in 2 houses, and when everything happened, were just lost. And so that's why the family was in the Philippines. They decided to, before they left, they gathered a bunch of medication and first aid supplies and went to the Philippines, took to the streets to offer their support to help people in the streets who had lost their homes, you know, offer comfort and also to say goodbye to their 40 lost members of the family.
So did the whole family go?
Ramil's family was, yeah. That was predominantly your family, right? Yeah.
That went from here to the Philippines?
Oh, so yes, sorry, this whole, they all went, yeah. Yeah, the whole family, 2 parents and 4 children. It was their first time going to the Philippines since they've moved to Canada. It's 10 years. Oh, sure. So Hervin is 21, Hugo is 11, and Rob Florian is 9.
Any other questions for the family? We also have individuals here from NAD. Would you guys like that? Yes? Okay.
We're all good. No more questions here? Okay.
Hi there. My name is Tracy Franklin. I'm a representative from Mothers Against Drunk Driving. First and foremost, our condolences go out to the family. As you see, impaired driving isn't an accident. It's a choice somebody makes. We've all heard it, we all know it, not to drive impaired. Home for 2 hours. You can see the tragedy on the faces here and how devastating it is when you try and explain this to people. They don't understand. It's hard to understand. How can you understand? How can you get a grasp of how devastating this is? But as you take a look at those faces, you know. It's horrendous. It's inexcusable. As they said, as Reese said, $20, $30, $40 for a taxi ride home. How do we stop this? How do we prevent it? I wish there was a magic word, a magic action that I could say would do this, but really it's in all of us at the end of the day. Take a cab. Plan ahead. Take a taxi. Take the bus. Stay where you're at. There's many things that can be done. I wish I could say that this will be the last impaired driving crash and fatality this year, but in reality, we know that it probably won't be. And we will see again the devastation, the tragedy that happens. For what? To go out and party and drive? It is preventable. It's 100% preventable, and we need to stop it. One campaign that we have going with the police and is report impaired drivers. And basically it's pull over, call 911. If you suspect there's an impaired driver there, call 911. It is devastating and it breaks my heart. My prayer for the New Year's is always, please, let's get through a year without another impaired driving crash and another devastated family, friends. We didn't make it very far into 2014 before this crash happened. And again, it's 100% preventable, and it needs to stop, and we need to all work together to make that happen. Is there any questions?
There's a group pushing for stiffer penalties, mandatory minimum of 5 years. Is that something MAD is involved?
It's MAD's involved in that, absolutely. Unfortunately, we have to go up in small increments. Personally, I would like to see it quite a bit higher than 5 years, but we end up having to do it in small increments, or we can't make any changes at all, it seems.
The sentences as they sit now, do you think that they're having any impact at all?
No. My personal feeling is no. For the most part, I think it's more of a slap on the wrist. I think in order to make the huge changes, we need to see a lot higher penalties happening.
Boils down. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it, Chair.
Boils down to person. You hear it all the time during the holiday season, in particular. Oh, there's not enough cat this year. There's not enough cat. Not enough transit. People got to stop making excuses. Is what I'm kind of hearing from what you just said.
Exactly. We can all find excuses for anything we do. And we all know that there is a taxi cab issue, not enough taxi cabs at holiday seasons, but that doesn't give us the reason. I mean, I hear excuses all the time. Well, I was only 2 blocks from home, it should be okay, I can get 2 blocks. There's always different reasons, but we need to take more responsibility and on ourselves. I've heard, well, the police should be on every corner, or, oh, MAD should be at every bar driving people home. Well, I'm sorry. We need to take the responsibility for what we're doing ourselves and make sure that we have a plan on how to get home.